Noah's flood was not worldwide, and nowhere in the Bible does it say it was, as the only place that falsity is taught, is from the pulpits of misguided unbelievers. Hi folks, I hope this video is finding you well, and today I'd like to speak to the flood of Noah, and as earlier stated, that flood was not worldwide. For those of you that know me, you know that I am here to undo what was done in those roadside infestations called churches, and folks, there are more than 5,000 denominations, yet there is only one true living God, and his name is Yahweh. The falsehood taught to those knowing no better states that there was a worldwide flood which drowned every living soul save Noah, his wife, his 3 sons and their wives. Hence people think that those 8 people were saved from the flood waters, covering the entirety of the earth, and that is where we will begin. The King James Bible itself is the source of this worldwide flood myth, wherein is found many mistranslations, but for those with eyes to see, even reading the King Jimmy, the truth can be found, and it's like I've said so many times in the past, it's all in the words. Let's look at Genesis chapter 6 and verse 6. Whereas God regretted making man because of their corruption, verse 6, and it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. Folks, God was so grieved with mankind that he decided to wipe them out by way of a flood, and with that thought in mind, he warned righteous Noah of the coming flood and told Noah to build a great enclosed boat, or an ark, in which he and his family might find safety, and where they might preserve a few of each kind of the animals. In Genesis chapter 7 and verse 1 we are told that God summoned Noah into the ark. And the Lord said unto Noah, Come thou and all thy house into the ark, for thee have I seen righteous before me in this generation. Yea, come into the ark means that God was already in there breathing life, as to invite Noah and his family inside it, for God said he saw righteousness in Noah's generation, or family. Beginning with Genesis chapter 7 and verses 10 through 24 we read, And it came to pass after 7 days, that the waters of the flood were upon the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, the 17th day of the month, the same day were all the fountains of the great deep broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened. And the rain was upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. In the selfsame day entered Noah, and Shem, and Ham, and Japheth, the sons of Noah, and Noah's wife, and the 3 wives of his sons with them, into the ark, they, and every beast after his kind, and all the cattle after their kind, and every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth after his kind, and every fowl after his kind, every bird of every sort. And they went in unto Noah into the ark, 2 and 2 of all flesh, wherein is the breath of life. And they that went in male and female of all flesh, as God had commanded him, and the Lord shut him in. And the flood was 40 days upon the earth, and the waters increased, and bare up the ark, and it was lift up above the earth. And the waters prevailed, and were increased greatly upon the earth, and the ark went upon the face of the waters. And the waters prevailed exceedingly upon the earth, and all the high hills, that were under the whole heaven, were covered. 15 cubits upward did the waters prevail, and the mountains were covered. And all flesh died that moved upon the earth, both of fowl, and of cattle, and of beast, and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, and every man, all in whose nostrils was the breath of life, of all that was in the dry land, died. And every living substance was destroyed which was upon the face of the ground, both man, and cattle, and the creeping things, and the fowl of the heaven, and they were destroyed from the earth, and Noah only remained alive, and they that were with him in the ark. And the waters prevailed upon the earth 150 days. Now Genesis chapter 8 and verses 1 through 5. And God remembered Noah, and every living thing, and all the cattle that was with him in the ark, and God made a wind to pass over the earth, and the waters assuaged, the fountains also of the deep and the windows of heaven were stopped, and the rain from heaven was restrained, and the waters returned from off the earth continually, and after the end of the 150 days the waters were abated. And the ark rested in the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, upon the mountains of Ararat. And the waters decreased continually until the 10th month, in the 10th month, on the first day of the month, were the tops of the mountains seen. Folks, remember, the King James Version says that the rain was upon the earth and the waters increased greatly upon the earth and that all flesh died that moved upon the earth. Whoa horse, can that be true? Let's read Genesis chapter 4 and verse 14, whereas Cain was talking to God, "Behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from thy face shall I be hid, and I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth, and it shall come to pass, that every one that findeth me shall slay me." Folks, the translators, as in so many other cases mistranslated, and the word used by Cain was not earth, but was the word ground. Folks, ground is Strong's word number H127, with the H denoting a Hebrew word, and the Hebraic word for ground is Adamah, pronounced Adamah, meaning land. So Cain said to God, "Thou hast driven me off of the ground," and you have probably noticed that Cain's descendants today are not farmers but they run pawn shops and other money-lending institutions, and we know who Cain's descendants are, don't we folks? Yea, in Genesis when talking about the flood, my friends, wherever it says that the flood covered the earth, the Hebrew word used in the original writing by Moses was eretz, meaning of the land. Folks, of the land means of that land, meaning one particular region or part of the land, but not the whole earth. Here is another thing to look at. Notice that it specifies that 15 cubits upward did the waters prevail and the mountains were covered. Let's take that word cubit. In ancient times 2 different lengths of the cubit were in use, the Hebrew sacred cubit of 25 inches, and the common cubit of 20 5/8 inches, therefore the waters rose above the tops of the mountains, of which it is speaking by either 25 feet 9 inches or 31 feet 3 inches according to which cubit you use. If this meant that all the mountains on earth were covered, then the waters would have to cover Mount Everest, which is nearly 6 miles high, therefore all the earth would be covered by water 6 miles deep, and in that case where could it have run off to when the flood subsided? My friends, I don't mean that the Bible was that mistaken, only the translators were, by making the mistake in taking the Hebrew word eretz, which means of that land, and mistranslated it to mean the whole world. Here's more proof that the flood was localized. Folks, if the whole earth was covered by 6 miles of water, then all the nations must have been completely exterminated, yet Babylonian, Egyptian and Chinese history runs right through this period without a break. Folks, the Bible gives the date of Noah's flood as commencing in 2345 BC, and ending in 2344 BC, in Lower Sumer, later called Chaldea, which occupied the same plains of Shinar, as told as where Noah's family made their way to after the flood, yea, the city of Ur, which was the leading city from about 2400 BC until about 2285 BC, and its history is not broken by any flood in this period. Meanwhile, farther to the north, Babylon was rising to power from about 2400 BC on, and reached a great height of civilization under the famous King Hammurabi, who lived at the same time as the Hebrew patriarch Abraham, being about 2250 BC, and again there is no break in this history. Therefore the Bible is correct in stating that the flood covered only the land of Noah, and that the translators are wrong when they changed the meaning of what Moses really wrote in the 7th chapter of Genesis, and said that the flood covered all the earth, which leaves us ready to inquire where the flood actually did occur, and for this we will have to start with Adam and Eve and trace where they and their descendants went after they left the Garden of Eden. Genesis chapter 2 and verses 10 through 14 tells us, "And a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from thence it was parted, and became into 4 heads. The name of the first is Pison, that is it which compasseth the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold, and the gold of that land is good, there is bdellium and the onyx stone. And the name of the second river is Gihon, the same is it that compasseth the whole land of Ethiopia. And the name of the third river is Hiddekel, that is it which goeth toward the east of Assyria. And the fourth river is Euphrates." The Bible tells us that God placed a cherubim with a flaming sword at the east side of the Garden of Eden to keep Adam and Eve from returning and having access to the tree of life, and if this guard was to accomplish anything it must have been placed between Adam and the Garden of Eden, So we can see that Adam and Eve were driven out to the eastward from Eden, so Adam's course would naturally have led him across northern Iran around the southern end of the Caspian Sea into what was formerly called Chinese Turkestan and today is known as Xinjiang province, and that's where the flood was. In closing folks, as we just learned, the flood of Noah did not encompass the entire world, but a select portion of land, or ground. As we head for the door, my friends, I'd like to touch upon one more thing, concerning Noah's sons and their descendants. I know that through churchology that we are taught that Noah's 3 Caucasian sons brought forth the 3 races, being Negroid, Asian or Mongoloid, and Caucasian, but folks, it is absurd to think that Noah and his wife, being of the seed of Seth, with both of them being white, it is absurd to think they could have 1 white child, 1 Negro child, and 1 Mongoloid child, and I'd like to clear that up, if I may. Remember what Genesis chapter 1 and verses 11 through 25 tells us. And God said, "Let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself, upon the earth," and it was so. And the earth brought forth grass, and herb yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself, after his kind, and God saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the 3rd day. And God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs, and for seasons, and for days and years, and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth," and it was so. And God made 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness, and God saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the 4th day. And God said, "Let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven." And God created great whales, and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly, after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind, and God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful, and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let fowl multiply in the earth." And the evening and the morning were the 5th day. And God said, "Let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle, and creeping thing, and beast of the earth after his kind," and it was so. And God made the beast of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind, and God saw that it was good. My friends, concerning when God created the world and its inhabitants, and made the laws governing their reproduction, he did not make chaos with whales giving birth to cattle and fish hatching out of birds' eggs, nay, as his law repeated several times, and for emphasis it was always that each creature must bring forth strictly after his own kind. The churches which teach this false doctrine of everybody being descended from Noah never got that drivel out of any Bible inspired by Yahweh God, and my friends, Moses wrote the first 5 books in the Hebrew language under the divine inspiration of the Almighty, and the Bible correctly tells that Noah's descendants went out into a world already populated, by people who God created before forming Adam from the dust of the ground. Genesis chapter 10 and verses 1 through 5 we read of the descendants of Noah's, yea, his son Japheth and his descendants spread themselves over the seacoast of the countries of the nations, each with their own language amongst the Gentile tribes and aforementioned heathen. Genesis chapter 10 and verse 20 tells of the descendants of Noah's son Ham, yea, these were the sons of Ham in their tribes, and languages, in the regions of the heathen. As well, in Genesis chapter 10 and verse 31 completes the trio with the sons of Shem, by their tribes, and by their languages, in their countries among the heathen, with heathen meaning pagans, those alien to the worship of the one true living God. So don't allow anyone to suggest to you that the Bible consists of the fables of a primitive people all coming from the 3 sons of Noah. Nay, as consistent with nature, the Bible is perfectly consistent with science, and with history, and this is the history of our race, the Anglo-Saxon, Scandinavian and Teutonic white race, and on that note, be well, stay strong, and I thank you so much for listening, my friends.